the telecom industry has realized the importance of mobile value-added services as a revenue driver. Given the declining ARPU, there is a need felt for capitalizing on the vast market.
To know how mobile applications and VAS can be revenue drivers using social media, in the phase of declining ARPU, I introduced to you the topic of our ultimate panel discussion, leveraging social media, an effective tool to drive revenues from mobile applications and VAS in a dynamic ecosystem.
To participate in the discussion, I would like to invite our chairperson, Mr. Sam Gulve, Joint Managing Director, Spice Mobility. I request sir to kindly take his seat on the stage.
Mr. Sam Gulve has over 26 years of diverse global technology industry experience. During his career, Sir has held various senior management positions in world-renowned companies such as Amdocs, AT&T Bell Labs, Avaya, Netscape, Spice, SSA, CDI Incorporated, as well as at highly successful startups such as Kiva Software, Calico Commerce, Visual Insights, and Shakti Systems. Prior to Spice, Sir was chairman and managing director for Avaya India and founding head for Amdocs India. Sir holds a BTech in engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, MS in computer science from Virginia Tech, and has done considerable amount of work towards doctorate in computer science from Illinois Institute of Technology.
I now take this opportunity to invite other distinguished members of the panel to kindly join us on the stage.
Mr. Rajesh Patalia, Associate Vice President, Content and VAS at Etisalat.
Mr. Samir Joshi, Associate Director, Price Waterhouse Coopers.
Mr. Jay Maru, Owner, Shimaru.
Mr. Vishal Jain, Associate Director, Ernst & Young.
Mr. Zubin Dubash, Chief Strategy Officer, Onward Mobility.
Mr. Akbar Boghani, General Manager, Vodafone.
On behalf of Symbiosis Institute of Telecom Management, we welcome you all to Communique 11. I request our chairperson to kindly preside over the discussion.
Thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure to be invited here. Beautiful, beautiful campus. I wish that, I go back to school now again. And my old esteemed friend, Director Patil, has essentially showed another way. He said, hey, after all this corporate thing and all that, come back to academia. That's where all the fun is. So really pleasure being here. When I first came back to India about 7 years ago, the first seminar I was invited for to was also by Symbiosis. So this brings back a lot of fond memories. So thank you for having me. I'm also really pleased to have such a distinguished panel along with me here. And thank you guys for being part of this panel and looking forward to having a very lively conversation. And I hope you guys are not very tired, given that this is the last session, 2 days, lots of information, lots of talk, etc. And you are equally enthusiastic about participating in this panel because, again, it's for you. And we are going to try and make, at least give you enough opportunity to participate, ask questions, etc. of anybody here on the panel. So first of all, let me kick off this session by saying a couple of things. I don't I'm not about statistics, and because you can all find that on the internet, right? So I'm not here to show that I can use internet or anything like that. We all know these are big numbers, and they're really big numbers, and they're going to get even bigger numbers. So that suffices to say there's a lot of opportunity, whether we put N billions behind it or R billions behind it or whatever, that's relatively immaterial. The topic is very exciting because social media, like, you guys are sort of grown up on it. It's more phenomenon for the younger generation, but not necessarily restricted to that. I'm seeing more and more people, even in their retirement age, etc., jumping onto Facebooks and Twitter, urged by and driven by their grandchildren and so on. So pretty soon it's going to be a broader phenomenon rather than purely, Gen X or Y or whatever Gen they're counting currently. It's a very important question that, value-added services has a huge opportunity to change the world. Not just, change the sort of stop the bleeding for the operator, but actually change the lives of masses. Mobile is more and more integrated in our life, and it's our lives, and it's going to get more so. It's almost become a sensory organ for us, just like your eyes or ears and so on, i.e. you're going to use it more and more to do more and more things in your life. Today, it might have been restricted to communication, some gathering of information, sending emails, messaging, etc., and consuming some apps, but you're going to do pretty much everything through your mobile, and not because it's cool to do, but because it's going to be convenient, it's going to be useful, it's going to make things faster, better, cheaper than the current norm is. And so there is an explosion. The other thing is the previous panel that you heard about, with the advent of cloud services, etc., the barrier to entry has dropped, i.e. 3 people in a garage thinking about a nice application that's going to serve the masses can quickly put something together. They don't need to build a huge infrastructure. They don't need to spend a lot of money on CapEx, etc. They can build this and put it out very quickly. They have to convince the operators, obviously, who are the gatekeepers today for these services, that this is going to be good, this is going to be important, this is going to be used by masses, and masses are going to pay for it. But unfortunately, there's ever-shrinking budgets for advertising, and there is a problem. How all these different services, wonderful creative services that are coming out on a day-to-day basis, how does the consumer find them? It's not like internet. Mobile is not like an internet, which is essentially broad real estate. Internet is a broad real estate device. You have a lot of screen space to search, and you can do complicated searches, etc. Mobile is relatively small real estate. Never mind, the screen sizes are getting bigger or the resolution is getting bigger. It's still small real estate. The other thing is mobile is consumed in small quantas. You don't have time to sit and sort of do 2 hours of browsing on mobile, but you're going to do 200 times browsing in a day on a mobile, each lasting a few minutes, rather than 2 times lasting for a longer period, etc. So it's a completely different paradigm. It's not just another third screen and so on. So the key question here is, that's important. That's going to change the world. It's going to obviously, stop the bleeding for operators, etc. But, and the second obvious thing is, you're looking at social media, which is catching fire. It's become a huge buzzword, and everybody loves to talk about it. The obvious question to ponder here is, how is social media and social networking as a platform going to help you, drive revenues and drive benefits to the consumer? I don't think you can drive revenues without driving benefits to the consumer. So they are very tightly linked. How are you going to make it better for the consumers? And that's what I'm really looking forward to this panel to answer. So my first question I'm going to ask is to Akbar on my left. Akbar is representing the operator point of view. And what I would really want to ask Akbar about is how does the operator see it in terms of, what is this potential and how to best exploit it?
So for an operator, the revenue comes from the customers. So for me, the number of customers, the loyal customers is the revenue. So my take on social media is, I would like to see how can I leverage social media to serve them better. So if customers are with me for a longer time, then definitely in a long run, I can cross-sell and upsell to them. See, there is no point if I, go on bombarding customers with a lot of services and one fine day they are not happy and they just churn out. In today's Indian market, with MNP in place, how difficult it is to switch the service. It's just a matter of a day. So I would like to use social media for actually serving the customers better. And actually we are taking some steps in this direction. And we are contemplating some applications, which customers can use for, logging the query, request and complaint.
Thank you, Akbar. He's making a couple of very important points here. One point is, that even today, there's definitely this 850 million penetration, etc. in India, but even today, a disproportionate sort of revenue comes from the high ARPU customers, and leveraging social media to cross and upsell this high ARPU customers, as well as take care of their customer service or consumer service requirements, is one way to look at, sort of retaining and driving additional revenues through that channel. So staying with the operator theme for a bit longer, and Jay, I'm not, jumping the gun and bypassing you, but staying on the operator theme a bit longer, I would like to sort of throw the question at Rajesh. Rajesh, obviously Akbar makes some interesting points about this. But on the other hand, social media is a two-edged sword. It's going to amplify the bad things also pretty significantly. How do you walk this tightrope walk? And what are, in your experiences, some of the do's, don'ts that the operators have learned from walking this tightrope walk?
You're very right in saying that it's a tight-edged, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, it is, but and there are certain do's and don'ts. There are certain rights and wrongs that operators have, experienced and committed. But before we get into that, one point which I would like to, kind of draw everybody's attention to, sir, is that what is social media all about? I mean, let's understand that first, so that if there is a clarity on that front, then there are no smoke screens whatsoever. What is social media all about? What is the single biggest USP of social media? Anyone?
There's somebody.
Yes. Correct, to a certain extent, yes.
It involves networking.
Yeah.
So, according to my view, social media can give rise to revolutions, like what we see in case of people can get connected and can share their views.
Yes, that's a part of it, yes. But there's one specific, trait or a USP that I'm looking for. Should I? Okay. According to me, and this is my opinion, the single biggest USP of social media is user-generated content, UGC. That is the crux of it. That is why it is so powerful. That is why Facebook has so many millions of subscribers versus, and that too without any advertising or near zero advertising, that Facebook has so many millions of subscribers versus advertisers, operators spending so much money. And we all know the figures, like Sir said, internet is a good source for getting those numbers. But without delving into the numbers, operators spend so much money in trying to promote a particular product, app store, whatever. I could supplement this point further. In a room full of so many people, I'm sure there must be at least about 30-40% using one particular operator's network. Yeah? Now, ask yourselves this. I don't want you to answer me, but ask yourself, are you aware that that operator has an app store? Point one. Point two, in that app store, suppose if you are aware that that operator does offer an app store, how many applications do you use? Let me guess. 2, 3, 4 at best. How many applications are available in the app store? 700 odd at any point of time. That's the last average I checked. Why? Because the operator does not spend enough money promoting it. Now my question, that's a known fact. That's what everybody will tell you. My question is, why should an operator spend money to promote applications? Are you getting me? Are you with me? Facebook doesn't spend too much money, yet it's prevalent. Bing, Orkut, Twitter, do any of these guys spend heavy advertising? So, we are in agreement, I guess, then. The point one is that the power of social media is UGC. Yeah, user-generated content. See, we are operators. Now, if you ask me what is the next logical step towards capitalizing or leveraging social media, UGC, that would be providing efficient networks, efficient means of communication, efficient means of consumption for the end users who are consuming it. Consumers are doing the hard part. They are logging into social media. I'm facilitating those interactions. That's where I make money as an operator. Yeah, so if I have efficient networks and the paraphernalia that go with it, the infrastructure and everything else that goes with it, automatically my user's experience is much better. Automatically he's a satisfied customer. Automatically he does repeats. Automatically it generates more revenues for me. It's a given. Yeah? How do I supplement it further? Well, we look at marketing products because we think somebody needs it. An end consumer needs it. That's the reason why we market it, right? And that's it. Half the times we don't even say thank you after he's bought the product. Isn't that a reality? How many times you felt the same? I have, most certainly. Wouldn't it be nice if somebody paid you to use a service instead of you paying for the service? Think about it. I'm turning the game completely around. Turning the table completely around. If somebody paid you to utilize social media, whatever it is, platform is irrelevant, but I'm just saying as a concept, wouldn't you do it? Wouldn't you tell 10 of your friends? Wouldn't viral marketing be most effective there? Word of mouth spread there, automatically generating numbers, automatically generating inherent profitability for me. Getting it? That payment that I need to make to the end consumer with the help of technology can be easily tracked. Yeah? It can be easily remitted. Payment need not be in cash, monies as we are used to looking at it. It could be in talk time. That's my business. I could reward talk time. I could reward messages. I could reward data plans for having consumed the platform of social media, whichever it is. If I do it smartly, I can use this platform as a huge, huge opportunity for mobile advertising. I'm sure Unilever would be most happy to pay me whatever, which then I pass on to my end consumers if I'm giving them a captive base of X million subscribers. TV has a very notorious, wastage ratio. Likewise with the other medias, not to mention they're all fragmented also. So, mobile advertising could be one way to look at it, which in turn generates the payment or compensation that I need to give to the end user to consume the service. And inherently, he is already on a plan. The most dramatic and the most drastic way to look at it, probably, in my opinion, would be to subsidize VAS usage completely with mobile advertising. I tell an FMCG, I'm giving you X number of subscribers captive for a month, pay me so much. I tell the subscribers, use any and every VAS service in my portfolio. Of course, technology permitting, integration permitting, whatever. Use any services. Don't pay me 30 rupees for a, 15 rupees for a tune and 30 rupees for a subscription a month for Caller Tunes. Or whatever, 49 for a data package. Use it as much as you want. All you have to do is listen to 3 ads or view 3 ads in a day. How many would want to then try it out? How much of an audience does this give for the company that is sponsoring the month? Yeah, so those are my takes on it.
Thank you, Rajesh. That was very thought-provoking in terms of, looking at things from a completely different perspective. And I wish there would be more operators who start looking at that way, because really, in certain areas, the market has sort of gotten tired. There's a lot of fatigue in the market. I'm going to now sort of change gears a bit, and I'm going to go to Jay, who's representing content and VAS, et cetera, from content ownership or VAS innovation point of view. And clearly, revenues generated, obviously, unless you give something of value to the consumer or find a clever monetization mechanism, the revenues are not going to get generated. So, assuming that's true, that exists, revenues are directly proportional to the number of consumers that service or content can acquire, how much engagement that the consumer is going to have. Never mind, you signed up for something and never used it. There's a lot of VAS revenues that are attributed to that. The operator side guys know that pretty well. The VAS side guys know this secret pretty well. But the fact of the matter is, the engagement, how many times the user uses it, and then how useful they find it. And then do they find it so useful that they're willing to recommend it, to others, so that it drives the go viral kind of phenomena, which again drives more acquisition and so on. And that's directly proportional to revenue generation. What are your thoughts in terms of, is the content industry and the VAS industry really got it, or this is still work in progress? And what are your personal thoughts in terms of how your company would be looking to exploit something like this?
So as far as whether the content industry has got it, I think definitely there are a lot of players that get it. And as for whether it's a work in progress, actually the fact of the matter is, ever since internet has happened, the first thing it's taught us is that everything is a work in progress. You're never ever done, right? But at the same time, the other thing it's taught us is that there's always a way to take old stuff and give it in new ways. And good stuff never goes out of style, right? Classics never go out of style. Compelling content never gets old. Amar Akbar Anthony works even today, right? Some things just never change, but you'll give it in different ways. So for example, there's a classic comedy of Amol Palekar, which is Golmaal, and you can watch it even today and you'll really, really laugh. But then again, you'll say to yourself, do I really want to watch a 2.5-hour movie? And I'll say, okay, fine, don't watch a 2.5-hour movie, watch a 15-minute version of Golmaal, which gives you the main scenes, the main songs, the main jokes, a little bit of narration, 15 minutes to capture the essence of the movie, bring you all of the highlights, and it fits the viewing time that you can manage on a movie screen. And that's something that we did at Shemaroo. We pioneered that. And we actually have launched a whole range of 15-minute movies across genres. And we've proved that it can be done not only with a movie like a Golmaal, but also with an Ishqiyan, also with a Run, even with a Mughal-e-Azam, actually. And that's something we've done. As far as social media is concerned, I think the two key takeaways for anyone in the VAS industry, anyone who's trying to go mass, is really very simple. One is, it's not about the social media by itself. That's important, definitely, for the kind of audiences that you're initially targeting, for the youth and so on. But more than social media, it's about the social effect. And that's really the key thing, right? It's about how do you make it easy to make it, to share, to copy, to pass things around, how do I really take advantage of that viral effect, that network effect? That's really the key thing that has made social media as successful as it is. And for that to happen, you don't have to be on a Facebook, although it's nice, and we will also be on a Facebook. Any brand worth its salt will be on Facebook, that's fine. But for example, there's a lot of other ways to leverage that effect. I mean, take something as simple as what the telcos did about 3 years ago, which is something called Star Copy, right? Star Copy is the social effect in action. All it said is, who am I most likely to learn my music choices from? The 3 friends I'm calling most often. Can I also make it really easy to share and really impulsive? When I'm calling Zubin and he happens to be a Led Zepp fan, and if I also happen to be a Led Zepp fan and I'm influenced by that, right? Can I press star, copy it, and boom, we've got 2 sales instead of 1, right? And probably I was not capable enough of finding Led Zepp on, when I dialed the short code. I'm not that good finding it. My dad is proof. He once asked me to find Avara Ka CRBT. It took me 17 minutes. So that highlights a whole other challenge, which is discovery. But my friend found it, and I just had to press star to copy. That social effect is what we can leverage. And that's what all of the best are learning. That's what a YouTube is learning. That's what the operators are learning. That's what everyone really needs to learn from. How do you make it easy to share, right? How do I take advantage of the circle of influence? The fact that my choices will get dictated by my friends' choices, right? Most likely. That is really the key learning over there. The second key learning from social media, if you really think about it, is that they really made it, they took advantage of the 3 main things that you need to go mass. And that's really the challenge facing us for a lot of VAS services today, is how do you go beyond the top tier of consumers? And what do you have to do for that? You have to make it accessible, you have to make it easy, you have to make it ubiquitous, right? Those are the key challenges. You didn't have to go load a whole new software to get into Facebook. You didn't have to learn a lot. The like button was right there. You just clicked on it. It wasn't too difficult for even my dad to pick it up. Then they added a whole bunch of features and made it complicated. That's fine. But they started with something really, really simple. They got you in. They made you use it. They got you used to the interface, right? And on that front, there's something that we feel the same effect applies in India. If you look at it, a lot of VAS consumption comes in through IVR portals or voice-related products work really, really well. SMS is next best. WAP is a little lower on the totem pole. And there's a reason for that. Lots and lots of language issues, lots and lots of transliteration issues. How many people can really, if you tell them, type this SMS to get this content, get to it? But if you tell them, dial 58800, and boom, you get something. It's really, really simple. Press 1, press 2, Bollywood chahiye, ek dabao, Doorshan chahiye, do dabao, right? And then how do we take that to 3G, right? So can we, and one of the things that we've done, and not that I want to just sell Shimaru, but just as an attempt of how it can be easy, is we've launched our own shortcode 58800 with a video IVR portal. So now make a video call. Video calls are ubiquitous. 70% of all 3G handsets support video calling. It's standardized, no format, no nothing. Right? So it's very close to ubiquitous, no settings, very easy to access, 58800, right? And very simple to use. Get onto the portal and it'll tell you, press 1 to do this, press 2 to do that. After that, it's a question of compelling content. Compelling content, a very wise friend of mine from the telco industry once told me, is as simple as ABCD. Astrology, Bollywood, cricket, and devotion. So if you go to 58800 currently, we've taken care of Bollywood and devotion. And the rest is coming soon. And with that, over to you.
Thank you, Jake. Jay has made a couple of very interesting points that not normally people make with social media, but it's kind of refreshing to hear those. One is really using social media to make things easier. I think that makes sense. You guys are studying. And when you're studying and you run into something, a difficult subject or a difficult concept, how do you make it easier is study in a group, right? Somebody else got another way to explain that, and that's how it sort of clicks. Otherwise, on your own, you might have struggled with that concept for a long time. So this group phenomenon that as a group we are doing something or consuming something is an interesting opportunity to make things easier. And Thank you for that. That's a very refreshing point. And the second point he made, which I'm going to further explore with the right side of the panel now. There's no right wing, left wing. This just happened to sit to the right or left of me, which is, social media great. It's something still fairly a top of the pyramid type of phenomenon. How can the real power of social media and social networking is in going viral, right? I mean, that's when something goes from nothing to millions and hundreds of millions of hits and everybody knows about it. And to do that, you gotta look at bigger than India. You gotta also look at Bharat, right? Everybody knows country is two things. One is like the global citizenry, which happens to be the Indian citizenry also, and the second is the rest of the country. And so let me start by asking Samir, what are your takes on how can social media and social networking be driven to more the rest of the pyramid, and how what's specifically you're doing to help your clients, etc., understand and exploit that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks SITM for inviting me for this panel discussion. To answer the question, what I would say is that social media is, as you know, quite influential mode or medium which actually dictates the way products get sold, the products get bought, and the products get modified or changed. And that's why it's quite important that all those who are in manufacturing or those who are in service sector, they have to have their ears to their customers, their feelings, their understanding about their expectations and their perceptions, because perceptions become reality over a period of time. Just to give an example, one of the oldest SUV manufacturer in India has come up with a SUV at a price point of 7,05,000 rupees, just to attract the young crowd, because they wanted to have an SUV. And that particular company has fan following of say 5.75 lakhs for that particular model. And based on those inputs, they made that offering, and they are following that to ensure that their new offerings are also like that. So it's quite important that companies should look at what their customers are expecting and how do they express that. When we interact one-to-one or in small groups, obviously that doesn't go to the companies. But when we use social media, and in current age and time, I'm sure all of us in one way or the other are connected to social media, be it LinkedIn, be it Facebook, or be it even say Skype to that extent. And there would be some social media which would be giving services free, and there will be certain social media which would be charging for the services, and we'll be happily paying for that. If you look at Skype, they're charging for the call charges which are cheaper than normal mobile calls, and customers are paying for that because customers do see value in that. So and if you correlate that with the developments which are happening now, like 3G or BWA, and a lot of investment which is happening now. So up to 2015, probably 500 billion would go into rolling out 3G and BWA access. If I give statistics, probably today, average ARPU of mobile customer would be somewhere $1.5 or $2. But today, if you look at 3G ARPU for a customer, that would be somewhere in the range of 10 to 12 US dollars. As on May 11, we had 9 million 3G customers. So these 9 million 3G customers are equivalent to the revenue of say 90 million normal customers. And if you look at 2015, we'll have 300 million middle class, and probably 210 million would be quite influential people, or people who would have money to spend. And that is something which is going to drive all this electronic applications and social media. So when we use the social media, obviously there has to be some stickiness, and as Rajesh explained, that the content has to be of liking of the user. Only when content is of liking to the users, then only there would be more usage. The more usage would translate into more usage of all new services in the form of 3G or bandwidth access. And when that happens, obviously it will convert into incremental ARPU. With 3G and bandwidth access or 4G, obviously the experience would be significantly different than what we have now on 2G in terms of speed and experience. So obviously that's going to help mobile industry. And what we see is that there would be, the value chain for telecom operations, which may consist of telecom operators, handset manufacturers, content providers, and application developers. All will have to work together more closely than before, because at the end of the day, customer remains focused, and the likings, demands, expectations keep on changing. So, we'll have to keep very close watch on that.
Thank you, Samir. One part of the question that I had asked you, I'm going to still persist with it because I don't think I'm, yet heard sort of a coverage of that, because, we keep saying that social media is for the younger audience. But is that how it's supposed to be? Is that how it's going to be? And is it only going to be top of the phenomenon? So should we wait for the rest of the world or the rest of the population to become Twitter and Facebook savvy and English savvy and all that and buy a smartphone? Or is there an alternative? Is there a way to create social networking on voice in vernacular? That's the direct question I'm going to be asking. But I'll come back to you, Samir. I'm going to throw that to Vishal, and also going to give him two sort of premises to work on. One is this, and the second premise is, on one hand, that's great. That might be really, a huge opportunity. But on the flip side of that, obviously, everybody is scared about data misuse and privacy issues and all that. But you don't want sort of fear psychosis to choke this opportunity. What's the right balance from a regulatory point of view, in your opinion?
Thanks, Sam. And thanks, SITM, for calling. And the best part I like of the panel is that we have I will say, in the entire VAS, we have all varieties of the speaker here who can handle all aspects of this discussion. Before I get into the flip side of it, I want to answer the first question where you talk about. In fact, that's a very good point which he has made, because if you see, when we talk about social media, the first thing comes in our mind is Facebook and Twitter. And as Rajesh said, it's a user-based generated content. That's why and they never do any marketing. That's true. But when we say good that they have brought the topic of social media in discussion because of Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, though LinkedIn goes in the third category. But I would say that it is a general community. It could be also the subscriber base within an operator, which can be considered as a closed user group or a social media for that. It could be also an integrated approach from the VAS perspective, which we can take. For example, like a mobile advertisement. If I see while driving on my way home or office, I see a hoarding or for an advertisement, and I see there say that SMS, say particular ABC to this short code, and you'll get more information. So it's like an integrated approach. So the moment if I'm interested, or maybe it could be a deliberate tactic where I will not reveal so much of information or put so much of information that the particular customer is actually interested to do that. And that in turn generates the revenue both for the telecom operator especially and maybe for the VAS provider also. So that is one part. So what I'm saying is we have to integrate. It's not the VAS only limited to the handset, but integrating from outside the mobile ecosystem also. So one is the short code triggering that SMS. The other, if I go back on the Facebook and the Twitter side, so if suppose there could be a simple step, if I am an operator, if I say that my subscriber can install Facebook as an application on his handset, in that case, there is a small request that would he like to join, add me as a telecom community, as a service provider community in his friend list. So that gives him an opportunity to get into his friend list, and when the update comes, I can directly put some USSD code or SMS, which through Hensaid, yes, if I want, it directly dials to an USSD thing. So then another set of, it's a linkage which is, again, he started from the mobile, I would say the entire social media application, but he moved out of it and he came to your environment where you can help him get into further and revenue models. That's another, getting inside the ecosystem and then taking him out of the ecosystem also. The other thing is, why talking about Facebook? Because Facebook is again to an educated mass and young mass and all, where we all know about it, we have done. What about the larger piece of the customer base, where like people, now that we have mobile right across a person who is on the road, who is, it's like driving an auto rickshaw or anybody else, with due respect to those guys, saying that, but the idea is, are they really equipped to know what is Facebook? So then we can have a community or an application, maybe on the rural side we can think something of that, where they can talk about some educational message, and the SMS which we are talking about we generally throw, let it get into a community type of a thing, a similar Facebook type of a site or an application, which can go to a semi-urban or the rural side of it. So you can leverage that within the existing customer base and not really people leveraging from who are already there on the Facebook or say Twitter or any other community site. That's one aspect of looking at it. When I go to the other one, one last example, then I'll move to the second one. If suppose there is, we have location-based also, which is there. It's like the latest one, which we see that Facebook Places. So the moment if my Bluetooth is on or my GPS is on, I have an option to say that I have checked in this airport, I have checked in this hotel. That happens automatically. Now, it could happen that even my friend is also checked in that hotel, but I'm not aware, or maybe that update was not there in my screen at that point of time when I was going through my wall or screen, whatever. In that case, from the operator side, there could be a back-end understanding, okay, if these two locations match and these both are in the friend list, can I send him an SMS or a trigger saying that your friend is here, would you like to talk to him? That's another back-end revenue opportunity which we can think of. This can also apply in terms of any promotional activity, in terms of any other service offering or like a promotion, you can say coupons and all. I'll give an example. What I did last week, this is a good, pure experience. The Formula One, there is, you know, who all are sponsoring the Formula One. And in my community, I've added those, these guys. And then they said SMS short code to this particular, say F1 to this particular short code, and you will get a free coupon to watch Formula One on Bangalore or whatever is the one which they are going to have. So I did that. Yes, I got a coupon saying, show this coupon and you will be allowed to enter. I mean, I'm not interested to go to Bangalore, but if I see from the TSP side, telecom service provider side, revenue was generated by sending that SMS, which is obviously is not a normal SMS, it's a premium SMS. So that is the integration which we are referring to. Having said that, when I talk about many things, we are putting so many things as a personal content, where am I, what I have done in Twitter, I just went out, I went to the loo, I came out, I'm fine now, all those types of details which we are there. Then the question comes is, though it's simple for you, the bad part is that is too much of your personal information or private information which you are revealing to the outside world. You may not feel it, but at the end, if the misuse happens, you will come back to the operator or that application some site and say that, why have you done this? I mean, this is what has happened because it was leaked to someone or somebody has used it. Now, what is the protection mechanism from the operator side? And that's the most important. It applies to all the players on the corporate side, be it a VAS player, be it a content generator who is managing the entire VAS, or even the telecom operator for that matter. That's why the recent amendment also, if I go back to the IT Amendment Act, I don't know how many of you are aware of, is a section 43A, which has been added in the IT Act, which is sort of a mandatory. These are talking about the personal information and the privacy rules, which needs to be taken care or implemented by each and every body corporate registered in India. And that suddenly puts you in a very interesting and a question mark place where to all the corporates, am I giving too much to my subscriber, or how am I protecting their information? Because if I am a customer, I'll say, yes, this is, so after a long time I saw you, yes, what's your mobile number? Just share with me. Okay, this is my mobile number, this is my PIN code. I've seen people on their wall post giving their BB PIN so that they can get connected to all their friend list. But BB pin, can it be considered as a personal information? What happens if it is get lost? I can also use it as a telecom service provider. I can misuse it through many other channels where I'm storing it. So then, as a service provider, be it a VAS or a telecom service provider operator, it becomes important for me to take care of that. And then this entire the privacy thing which comes into picture. Privacy was always there across the globe. If you see on the application, when you install, say, any application, you get a privacy notice. Go to any website, you will see a link called privacy notice, which they say, this is the information which you are sharing. You have consent, given the consent that I'm okay with these information being shared with you. This is what it will use for. This is what I will not use for. These are the people whom it will share. Entire ecosystem life cycle of whatever information they are collecting deliberately, and they're giving the disclaimer of the information which you are sharing, which we call as user-generated content. Then they have to be very clear and giving the disclaimer that I am not responsible for whatever you're saying. And that privacy notice becomes important. It does not only restrict to, say, an application layer, but it comes back to the telecom operator also, because that application is riding on the carrier, which is the telecom operator. So that entire, I would say, to answer your question on the flip side, yes. The other thing is, it's not only you who are taking care of your privacy, but what if your friend posts? I'll tell you an example. There's option of tagging you on the photographs. There are many photographs which you would not like to put on your wall post, but your friend has put it and he has tagged you and your entire friend is seeing that photograph. So it's the restriction doesn't happen only to you, it always goes to somebody else putting some personal information on your site. And just making things simpler, if I just keep aside this particular piece of information and go back to, say, some sort of an online banking or internet trading or anything, where if I want to re-authenticate myself for some sort of a third party or a financial transaction, in order to give it more simpler way, the authentication may not be that strong. So in order to breach that part of it, I can gather information which is there on my social media or on all my community site. So it's like if somebody is deliberately looking to do some sort of a misuse, as I think Apurva also asked in the earlier session, the misusing of the location base and all the information which is there, yes, it is very important, and which as an individual we have to take care, and a service provider to all the ecosystem, they have to take care of. So there are regulatory aspects. The other regulatory aspect, apart from the personal information side, is the too much of botheration for your customer by bombarding of SMS and marketing stuff to them. I think there are the TRI regulations which is in draft, or I think it's already there, where it talks about that these SMS, there will be penalties if these are not asked or unsolicited SMS sent to somebody. So those are the guidelines again so there is a lot of potential on the revenue side, but there is a lot of, the flip side of it is that you have to take care of these things that in the entire, is a gathering the revenue part, you should not miss these either on the regulatory at the corporate level or regulatory at the mass level or as an individual personal information.
Thank you so much. Vishal makes a couple of very interesting points there that, yeah, the potential is humongous, but obviously there are also gotchas that you got to be really careful of, because, anything that's worthwhile, it's a sort of natural laws. There are several natural laws. One of the natural laws is anything good also comes with sufficient price on it, whether the price is direct or indirect in terms of risk. And so you got to be really careful in terms of how you use it, how you exploit it, but the potential is there. And the winners and losers, what would differentiate them is those who can, benefit from the potential while staying north or clear of these gotchas. And we are still, all of us are still learning from it. The other point is that he made, sort of alluded to, was from regulatory point of view, TRAI now is going to, by end of this month, stop these unsolicited SMSs, which was the biggest sort of advertising mechanism for value-added services. Very few VAS makes it to TV or radio or front page of Times of India, etc. Most of them are sort of people know from through these SMSs, and that's going to be not possible anymore. Thus, even more onus on these alternative means of discovery. I'm going to now go to Zubin. Zubin has a very different, sort of from what his company does, a very different perspective in terms of mobility, given the physical presence that his company has and some of the very different models that they employ. So I'm very curious, and plus his role as a chief strategy officer, I'm very curious how he envisions this whole potential and gachas in the social.
Okay, so coming back to the point and the topic of this discussion, which is social media, let me just take a step back and connect on what we understand by social. It's a very layman kind of understanding which we all know very subtly, but if we go through this kind of example, we'll understand what exactly social means and the power of social. If today we look at where VAS is today, okay, and over the last 10 years, I've been part of the industry for the last 10 years, the entire VAS industry has got two models on which it runs. One is called many to one, and the other is one to many. Okay? Both of these are not social. Okay? Let me give you an example. When you have to find out what the score of the latest cricket match is, you will send out a message which is CRI to a shortcode and get back your response. What does this do? This means that a lot of people are messaging CRI, that's many, to one shortcode, and you're getting back a response, which is many to one. On the other hand, you have the operators and you have VAS providers sending out messages, a lot of people, one person sending it out to many customers saying, please come and use our services. That's, again, one entity sending out messages to the entire world. This is one to many. Now, in both these instances, you cannot think of any disruption that can take place with this entire concept of social. But if you spin it around and just think of the obvious next, which is many to many, you'll find that all the examples that we've talked about today, so whether it's Skype, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Star2Copy, whether it is voice blogs for that matter, everything is many to many. And many to many is the only way to go about social. Okay? So in any model, and this is just a comment I'm making and just connecting onto the topic again, any model that we look at, we would want to look at it from a point of view of saying, how do I create customers who create more customers? That's the point. And that is what many to many is. Facebook is a platform where many users come and meet many of their friends. And that happens to every one of us, which is why it has exponentially grown. Take Twitter, for example, the same logic would apply there. So that's the point as far as social is concerned. The other element that social gives us, and of course, barring the elements and toning down the elements of privacy and all the other aspects of its extremities, KYC, which is knowing your customer, is a very, very important aspect of what social can do for you. Okay? What I mean by that is, when I know, like he mentioned about location, I know that someone would know that I'm in Pune today at Simbi. The first thing I would get to know is someone around me would get to know where I am. People in Bombay would know that I'm here, so they would say, what you're doing in Pune. So there's that little connect about where I am. What am I doing? Who am I meeting? So this entire thing about knowing your customer comes along with social. So that's the other aspect. And that's very important to connect with the customer to the extent of mass personalization. And when I say that, I mean to the level of knowing everything about everyone in your customer base. It's a big statement, but that is what social can do. The other aspect, again, is viral. Okay? Now, viral is this entire aspect of many to many that I mentioned. It also helps you to understand that viral does not only mean the positive aspect of viral, but it can be detrimental and shut shop for you as well. So if you've made, let's say there's an entire promo or there's an entire brand that we've created around the aspect of getting customers on board. If there's one faux pas, your many to many, your viral itself can shut shop for you. Okay? Napster is an example. Mouthshut.com is a classical platform that allows you to do that. It just voices your opinion onto any topic or any product that you've bought, and that itself spreads again like wildfire. Twitter itself, you are a custodian of the brand's experience onto whatever you're selling out. Facebook status is a classical example of that, you know. So that's how the viral aspect comes along. You also get the voice of customer. Now let me just come to the aspect of how we tackle this or how we plan to tackle it, because very honestly, I have been in the VAS industry for the last 10 odd years, as long as it's existed in India, but mostly on the telecom side. It's been barely 3 weeks since I've moved out of the telecom operator side and moved into an entrepreneurial venture called Onward Mobility. And what we endeavor to do, okay, is to create a connect with the last mile, okay? We have a distributor network of about 10,000 odd retailers in the country who sell value-added services through the retail channel. What that means is, you go to a retail counter, don't have to go there, even if you go and buy a handset, he'll say, sir, handset le lijiye, sir, aapko SD card chahiye, sir, aapko scratch guard chahiye, sir, aapko pouch chahiye, ye sab le liya, sir, hamare paas ek application hai, ye dekhiye, he'll show you a box of the app, something like you'll see like a CD. So it's a physical, tangible sale. And there goes, this guy's connect with the audience, with the customer, and says, hey, you know what? I can connect with you, I can tell you, I know what your need is because in the last 5 minutes I've understood your need. I've understood where you're coming from. And here's an application that can save you from losing your phone in case you've lost it. I mean, you can actually, it's a theft preventer, you know, a theft tracker kind of application. Now, it's a simple example that I'm giving, but the idea here is that the digital sale that happens through mass selling of VAS services, which is why where we are today where TRAI has clamped down on all our VAS services. Here's where the last mile concept sell of digital goods comes into play. And to that extent, if you look at this as a FMCS model, which is a fast moving consumer service model, it's very difficult to do that because service can never be fast moving. But in this case, it is. So you're talking about a fast moving consumer service, mobile apps, but you never thought of this, saying mobile apps, the moment you think of it, you assume that there's something I have to download, and probably I won't kind of tone this entire audience down on their intellect, but I'm just saying that a good chunk of us will say, I've heard of it, but I've never tried it, okay? And this could be a lot of the entire middle of pyramid and bottom of pyramid. But is there a need? 100% there is a need. How do we know this? Because we've got these 10,000 retailers who actually sell, concept sell, create need, understand need, and then very clearly sell. The second advantage is that the customer knows for a fact that he is not being charged from his bill. So he knows consciously that he's shelling out from his main wallet and not from his telecom wallet. Okay? And that is what gives him the confidence that this is a very simple, straightforward thing, as if I'm buying my groceries, I'm buying electronic goods, I'm buying my clothes, so now I buy an app or buy a VAS service. This is the way we will try and communicate and tell people that this is a VAS service and this is how we'll distribute. Coming to the social aspect of how this happens. Today there are 10,000 odd distributors and retailers who are selling it, who we've signed up. There could be an MLM that could take place in the same fashion. Each one who consumes can say, listen, I'm the ambassador of this company who sells apps, why don't you take the app from me and here's it. So he becomes the ambassador, and that's where the viral aspect comes into play. That's where many to many comes into play. Of course, that's the vision, and that's what we will look at doing. But as of right now, this is what my views are on this topic. Very powerful, need to be a little careful, but at the end of the day, if you crack it rightly, you can achieve exponential valuation to anything that you're doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Zubin, for very interesting thoughts. I would like to open the floor for questions. I'm cognizant of the fact that the whole thing is running a bit late. So we would probably take 2 or 3 questions. Can somebody mic that person out there?
Good afternoon, panel. My name is Nimesh Bhatia. I'm from Marketing and Finance Specialization. My question is a bit twofold. Social media has empowered the users with the ability to express themselves anytime, anywhere, and whatever they want. We talked about the user-generated content. The question is, do we need a regulatory framework to regulate the social media space? And if yes, what will be its impact on the industry as a whole?
One of you guys want to take it?
Okay, let me answer. I think just going back to the same what I said earlier, the question here is not to regulate the social media aspect, because there is a lot of potential, and I think Zubin has put it very step by step in a many to one concept. As a student also, I mean, it's a good learning for me as well. So if I say that part, I would not say a regulation for the social media, but the implication part is something where always the regulatory comes into picture. And here when we talk about the usage of social media, that means there are some type of information, and especially when it is, most of them are a UGC, then in that case, it's the implication of how that can be used or not used, the regulation will go around that, which is why I talked about something called privacy aspects. And when we talk about the regulation, that means from the application and the ecosystem player side, what is it they are supposed to do. And I think they have these very well disclaimer privacy notices which they put. So there is a regulation on the content side and the implication. So as such, if I ask a regulator on the social media as such, it may not be there, but yes, on the content side and the implication with respect to that, it can be, because it is just again one of the means, I would say. And I'm right now, I mean, I cannot think of any regulatory with respect to just social media as such.
I'll just add something to that real quickly. You know, any such user-generated platforms, content platforms, are require, you know, extreme civility to use, right? Common civic sense, etc. The social responsibility comes with the social empowerment, yes, right? Those go hand in hand. Yes. As far as digital laws are concerned to regulate this, especially in terms of misuse, when does my personal opinion becomes a libel, right? That I'm actually taking down a company because of some nefarious reasons, or an individual or whatever. These are very complex issues, and especially in our country, the regulation is still lagging, you know, on the lot of this digital laws front and so on and so forth. So very good point, but as individuals, we all need to take social responsibility of, you know, being good citizens of how we use it. One more question.
Thanks.
Over there.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Dinesh. I'm from Marketing and Finance second year. My question is that when you talk about social media, then, you know, it's not only about the individuals, but also the relationship between the, you know, individuals. So how can we exploit that relationship to drive revenue?
Well, that's the premise behind, you know, advertising on the social media platform. I mean, remember, all the advertisers who actually seek permission from you to use your data, and part of your data is, you know, your friends' data, and they build from that. So they understand the profile, essentially. Try to understand from this relationship what is the theme or what is the commonality between that relationship. But anybody else on the panel wants to add something to that, please feel free.
I think the way it would happen is that, assume that if I am a manufacturer or service provider, I would want to reach out to my target audience, and I would want to approach those social media providers or social media operators who are operating in the domain or in the area of interest in which, you know, I would be interested in. So, for example, if I am in say entertainment business, or you know, if there are blogs pertaining to entertainment or media, then probably, you know, I would try to approach those blogs and publish my content there. If I am in automotive, then I would try to go to, say, carwale.com or something like that. Or, you know, if it's like computers, then probably the blogs or social media which is focused primarily on that interest, I would try to reach out there. And that way it can be more focused, rather than reaching out to masses where probably I may not have target audience. And just to digress from this and address the earlier question, one of the important things which probably will spread it like a viral is that if social media in vernacular medium or in a regional languages gets impetus. And probably that may happen because of this Aadhaar scheme which is being rolled out, wherein government may fund or may support directly or indirectly these kind of initiatives. And I'm sure there would be communities which can get created and which can get accessed by those who are interested in those communities.
One more thing to add to to the point there on sort of using the relationship. If you forget about Twitter and Facebook and whatnot for a second, and just think about, there's always been friends circle, right, in real life. There's always been groups and friend circles. And if you look at groups, there are influencers in that group. And essentially, those influencers could change based on the domain. Somebody is an auto fanatic. So his friend circle is going to ask him about cars because they know that he knows. He's the one who's going to do research. Somebody might be in entertainment. Always ask him to recommend a good movie or a good restaurant or somebody for music, etc. So in a social environment, there are influencers. And there's marketing has become very sophisticated. Of course, still, there's practical limitations in terms of how much information and what can you make out of that. But conceptually, to unearth within social networks who are the influencers and sort of target, focus on them, because that's where the opportunity for something to go viral is higher than, at the periphery. So there are things of that nature. We'll take one last question. Somebody from this side, please. Anybody? Okay, I think this is, okay, let's go with you for the last one.
Sir, I'm Shobneet Bhargav, second year system in finance. So my question is like, the idea is coming up of having a content-based charging. For example, Mr. J. Maru said that if you're showing a movie, so for example, if I'm showing a new movie, I should charge more. And if I'm showing an old movie, I should charge less. Similarly, if I'm showing a live cricket match, I should charge more. It should not be data-based charging. So this kind of model is feasible here. Sir.
What's the question?
So is content-based charging should be done, especially in the case of media, social media. Like if I'm accessing, as Mr. J. Maru said, if I'm watching a new movie,
I understand that. I mean, and I'll have Jay answer the question, but I want to add just one thing. Look, as long as there has been buying and selling and there's been commerce, the price you pay directly is proportional to what you're selling and what its value to the consumer is. Right? It is whether there is social media or not, whether there is Twitter or not, whether there is technology or not, you pay for what you get, right? I mean, so if you get something that's unique, differentiated, you're going to pay higher. If you're getting something that you must have right now, you're going to pay higher. If you want it hot and piping to your doorstep, you're going to pay higher. The same frozen pizza, you'll get it cheaper. So it's always been like that. But Jay, if you feel free to add to it.
So, I mean, I completely agree with Sam. The fact of the matter is that there will always be some level of differentiated pricing because you are ultimately going to pay depending on the value that you're getting out of it. Now, that value can come in different forms. You might pay more for better content. You might pay more for newer content. You might pay more for convenience because you want it at your fingertips as opposed to a less convenient option, right? I mean, why is it that in a market where you can pay 66 rupees to buy a VCD, which you can watch unlimited times, you might pay 75 rupees on DTH to watch it once in 48 hours, right? For the sheer convenience. I don't have to drive to the shop. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to bother with keeping the VCD. I wanted to watch it one time, I'm done, right? So there's multiple ways in which value can be delivered and for which people would pay a premium. And that already exists today. As in, I don't think that it's something that can it be done. I think it's already is being done. Sometimes it's being done in subtle ways, and maybe you don't realize it. At other times, you do realize it. So that's definitely an aspect of it. How can we make the charging simpler is something that everyone is constantly working towards. But the fact is that even today, premium content does charge a higher price to an extent, or convenience does charge a higher price to a large extent. And that will always continue to be the case. I think the other interesting thing that social media sort of throws up is to take advantage of again, sort of network of influencers kind of a thing. So, for example, and this is stuff which has been attempted, never really taken into sort of mass production. But for example, Chokher Bali was charged more premium pricing in Bombay versus in Bengal because it's more premium here. It's not that easy to get. There's less Bengalis here, or it's, you know, all of that. So you're paying for that convenience or access, whereas in Bengal, okay, it's, you know, every single theater had it, right? That was one example that was tried a while ago. And such experiments will keep happening from time to time until such time as access becomes ubiquitous, and at that point, you can't do it anymore. It doesn't happen today because most movies today are available cross-country almost at the same time, right? So you can no longer make that differentiation. So you've got to find a different way to differentiate. And everyone will keep doing so. Did I answer the entire question?
So,
Sam, can I just endorse something that both of you have said? Just to give you an idea, there's an app that we sell called Mobile Copy. Okay, so it's basically a backup solution. It backs up your entire phone into a cloud. This app, you can try any app store. It's available free of cost. Try and guess how much we sell it for. $5.99. And it sells. That answers your question. Convenience and relevance with connect of what the need is will always sell. Okay?
Yeah, Samir, go ahead, make a small.
Yeah, just to, I'll not take more time. One example, how many of you have seen a movie called Das Kahaniyan? Now, if you look at that movie, there were 10 stories in a span of 2.5 hours or 3 hours time. The whole idea was probably, you know, to come with one story which can be, 10 stories which can be easily accessed based on the choice of a viewer on their mobile phones. So format and delivery which is easy to access and easy to enjoy. So there would be experiments till a point where, you know, consumer accept that and it can be monetized on a mass scale.
Thank you, Samir. You've been a wonderful audience. Really enjoyed coming here, and I thank the panelists. Makes my job extremely easy. So thank you again for having us.
So kindly remain seated for a few more minutes. Please remain seated for a few more minutes, sir. We thank all our panel members for such a thought-provoking session. We understand that with 3G in market, UGC is catching fire with near zero advertising, especially from high ARPU customers, and the social effect it has created through accessibility, easiness, and ubiquitousness for masses speak for itself. The answers provided by all our panel members to the question raised by a moderator as to how social media will drive revenue and benefits to the consumer has opened doors for new thoughts, especially where revenue and regulations are concerned. It was truly an enlightening session that we all would cherish.
I now invite my colleagues to felicitate our esteemed dignitaries with mementos as a gesture of our gratitude and appreciation. We thank our panel members for this insightful session and